Hey everybody, Charles from Thread and Signal here, product designer. Today we're going to be building a custom jig for a customer actually. I'll keep it mostly anonymous and say JJ is kind enough to allow us to use their design as a tutorial for building jigs and custom molds. But today we'll specifically be building a jig to hold this part between two halves, and that's specifically what the customer requested here. So I'm going to walk you through how I would do that, and then from there we'll talk a little bit about kind of the theory behind it and connect that to like the first video. The idea that we're connecting here is using the combine cut operation and a series of strategically placed sketches in order to create this jig. So first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to create a sketch. I guess it's worth noting that this particular part is a step file, and before the video a step file maintains its place in absolute space when you load it up. So it was actually like way over here. I had to drag that part to the origin. So when you upload a step file and if it's way off the origin, you can tell by making origin visible here and dragging that part back relative to the origin. What we're going to do now, though, now that we've talked about that, is create our sketch. We're going to create our sketch on the Z-plane in this case. So we are going to create actually I prefer center rectangles versus 2 points personally. Center rectangle. Okay, so I'm going to say about 260, and we'll just go 200 by 200. Just to make this nice and manufacturable. Okay, cool. So now that we have our rectangular sketch here, or square sketch in this case, I mean, it's technically a rectangle as well. But now that we have our square sketch here, what we're going to do is we're going to extrude this up as a new component. And this is going to be our jig housing or our mold housing, right? So we're going to extrude this up as a new component. We're going to make sure that we have the full component enveloped in there. In order to make sure that I have everything properly done, I am going to section analysis this. And we use our sectional analysis to see where our part is at in the tool. Or in the jig in this case, and we're going to use that to line up where we're going to make the sketch for the cut specifically. So now that we see, I mean, I designed it so that it's about halfway through this sketch here, and we're going to turn off this sectional analysis. So we're going to select the face here, the side of this rectangle, right? Because we want to draw a sketch on the side to cut this bad boy open, right? So now that I have things the way I like them, I'm going to create sketch. In order to make the jig fit correctly together, what we want to do is make sure that that jig has the ability to align with itself. So we're going to make our line tool here. We're going to come back. We're going to place our first point. Five millimeters, 5 millimeters, 5 millimeters, 5 millimeters. Come all the way across. And 5 millimeters, 5 millimeters, 5 millimeters, and 5 millimeters. Bingo. Okay. Oh, here's I guess like one thing. If you wanted to just make a straight line and make something that just fit in the top of this face here, you could just extrude cut this piece off and make sure that it doesn't interact with this body, which we're also going to make a component. All right, let's see. Create components from bodies. Okay, here we go. So we are going to call this Boolean. And we are going to call this mold housing. And we'll call it jig housing. Because it's not a mold, it's a jig. There we go. Okay. Actually, I'm going to edit this sketch one more time. Here we go. And I'm going to select that, that. Okay. And then I'm going to finally offset those pieces by symmetrically 0.1 millimeters per side. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to finish that sketch, and we're going to come back to that another time because we're going to come back to the Boolean here. We're going to do the combine cut operation on it. So let's get our sectional analysis pulled up here. And let's hide the sketches so I don't see that. And okay, so combine. And as we talked about in our first video, we want to cut into our target body. So we select our target body. We cut with our tools. So we select our tool body as the Boolean mold in this case. We select cut specifically, so it cuts into it. In this case, we're actually not going to keep the tool because we're just making a jig in this case. We don't need the tool. And then tool is gone, and you have a Boolean shaped cavity of that part in there now. So now how do we get it out, right? So we go back to our sketch from before, and we bring sketches back. Here we go. And we select here and here, and we make sure it's all selected, and then we extrude, and we're going to extrude cut by 200 millimeters because that was the size of our square, and that's just 200 the other way. Here we go. We click select there. Now we're going to see in our jig housing, so we actually have 3 bodies in this case, so we can remove this, this, and this. Now for something like this small, unless this is absolutely needed, you know what we could do? One, we could just delete it. 2, we could do a join operation and extrude like one of these faces back into the jig itself, and that would just rejoin the bodies together. Bring this back. As you can see, we have a cut jig, and we have the parts as well. So what I'll do actually, I'm going to bring this combine cut operation back for a second. I'm actually going to hit keep tools. And what that's going to allow me to do is see how this thing sits in the jig as well. So in this case, let's see, is there anything that's going to hold this back at all? So like that hook, for example, that could be an issue. You see, the basic idea here is that we were able to get the jig and get the object into the jig such that it is held. Whoops. Here we go. This is right side up. And then if you want to get fancy with it and also not cut your fingers, you can fillet these edges. Okay, I just love fillets. I go crazy with the fillets. Here we go. Nice, nice. Okay. All right, let's see. We might need to bring this part up just a little bit. There we go. That looks a lot better now. I guess one thing that's worth noting when making jigs is that, like I said, like any hooks, any things to that nature, those are going to be things that we need to solve and remove specifically. So really the only things that we're going to need to do after looking at this is clear up right here and right here, these hooks, because they won't come out of the bottom specifically. So by deleting this here, we're going to see that this creates essentially a geometry that would not be able to remove the part from the jig, right? So in order to remove that, what we're going to do... All right, everybody, I'm back, and have my lab assistant here. I had to make sure he was okay. But what I'm going to do now is show you exactly how I plan on making the internal geometry of this jig work. So what I've done is I've created a sketch, and in that sketch I've made a center diameter circle. Whoops. Edit sketch. Here we go. I made a center diameter circle here, and I've made two lines that line up directly with these points here where these tabs are going to go in, right? We're going to extrude cut this down. Same with this other side. I saved the other side so that we have something to show. So boom, boom, and boom, boom. So we'll finish that sketch up here, and then we are going to control click these three faces, or three shapes rather, and then we will extrude cut this down, so like so. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, nice. So now that's gonna fit in there all nice and snug, and we're good there. And we just need to do the same thing with this piece right here. So I think the easiest way to do this one is just going to be to center cut again. So I might do a rectangular shape this time. And you know what? Actually, I'm just going to use the line tool. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to use the line tool and make my own sketch. And I will start here, go here, here, maybe come up here a little bit, and then go here, and then finish that sketch, extrude cut that down the same way. Okay, let's see, let's bring the Boolean back. Make sure that it doesn't get caught else anywhere. Are there any other tabs or any other geometry that's going to get caught in anything? Doesn't look like it. It really just looks like it was those two tabs. So you got to be careful about tabs. Okay, so let's check the other side here. Are there any tabs on this side? Ooh, there's a big tab on this side. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, and I probably should have thought of this like 30 minutes ago, I am just going to select a face, this face, the face that has the most stuff dug into it, as you can see. So like, how do I get this out of here? You know, I've basically accounted for all of the tab holes. It's just a case of now I need to get the actual like dig the device out. So what we're going to do is, again, select the face that we want to bore into, and we are going to select a rectangle, and we're going to do this smaller than the face, but also consuming all of the internal geometry. Alright, let's try that one. And then we'll finish the sketch, select this bad boy, extrude it down by like 1 millimeter. And don't cut the part. There we go. Okay, cool. And we will get this saved here. Okay, and I'll just rewind this one extrusion. Here we go. So we extruded this rectangular face down in order to reveal the part. And then now we're in the process of just carving out with extrusions the internal geometry of this part. So we go down here, objects to cut, remove that. There we go. Cool. Okay, this is coming together real nice. So it looks like this side is pretty much done from what I'm seeing. Yeah, we've pretty much bored everything out that needs to be. So this side looks done. Okay, cool.